Hello, YTPC. This is Big Casper here, coming to you from a remote location in west central Ohio. I've tried several times to do an introductory video to the YTPC, but not really successfully because I find I'm not really good at talking about myself. I've been on tape hundreds of times preaching sermons and doing counseling sessions and other such things as that, but talking about myself I find I'm not so good at, so I thought, well, maybe I'd do this VR to the Bayou Guru, and that would get me started. I found his channel through, I think, a comment he made on Harriet Herfer's channel. I was intrigued by the name Bayou Guru because, well, my wife of 37 years grew up in northern Louisiana in the Kisatchie National Forest, very remote location. So frankly, it's like, you know, if you've seen the show Duck Dynasty, that's her family. Her brothers look and dress and talk and act just like that, and I love the place. I love the secluded location there. I love the woods there. Just nothing greater than the couple weeks a year we're able to spend down there. So when I first heard the Bayou Guru, I just was instantly interested in what he was talking about. Just his manner. He's a real person. He's you know, you just feel like, I mean, he puts me right back there. He puts me right back in Louisiana, just like I'm right back at home there. So I thought I'd do a VR to him and talk a little bit about what his channel means to me. I saw his recent videos, and then I started looking through some of his older feeds, and I saw this one called "She Never Lost a Bird," and it was just a great story about the great dog that he had, and it was really a tribute to that dog, and it really put me in mind of a great dog that I had. Shortly after my wife and I got married back in 1981, I'd always wanted to have a dog. I grew up with dogs on a farm in Ohio, but now I was out on my own and thought we'd get a dog, and I had always wanted an English Springer Spaniel. So we started researching and found one on a small farm, some puppies on a small farm just south of Louisville, Kentucky, in Hodgensville. And like I said, and we made the contact there and decided, okay, we'd go down and take a look at these puppies. Well, at that time, we were getting ready to enter the ministry, didn't really know where we would be located or how we'd be. So I thought, well, let's get the smallest dog, and I knew the females were smaller than the males. So we went there fully expecting to come home with the smallest female puppy that they had. Well, we went to this farm there in south of Louisville, and the lady came out. She opened up the barn door, and out come rolling these 3 English Springer Spaniel puppies. And we started trying to, look at 2 of them were females, 1 was male. We started trying to pick from amongst the female spaniels that were there. But the little boy puppy that was there, he was just adamant that he was going to go home with us. He showed out. I mean, he was really just the star of the show. And, we kept trying to look at the females, and then suddenly, I looked at my wife and she looked at me, and we said, we're going to take the little boy. And so we, right then and there, took that little boy puppy home with us, and he just became the love of our life. Really, like I said, since we had just been married, only been married a couple months at that time, we were setting up household, trying to get some things together, and the most economical way to do that was, in the summer in Ohio, there's just lots of auctions. And so we would go to these auctions, and we would always take this little puppy with us. And the little puppy's name, we chose the name Casper. When you hear that name, most people that we said it to, I think, thought Casper the Friendly Ghost. Really, we named him after Casper is the 3 wise men that showed up at the birth of the baby Jesus, or not the birth, but after that, maybe a couple years after that. But in German, their name is Casper. And so actually Casper is a name for royalty or king. And so we named him that because we just thought he was such a royal, regal beast that we named him Casper. But it also worked as a friendly ghost because he was indeed that. I mean, he was the star of every show he went to. So we would go to these auctions, and of course, you know, didn't have our name out on the shelf on our sleeves, but you know, we were always talking about him and calling him Casper. So everybody at the auctions took to calling him Little Casper, and so of course I became Big Casper, and that's where the nickname comes from. That's where my channel names comes from, Big Casper. But talking just a little bit more about that dog and how much he meant to us. So if you get bored by long dog stories, this would probably be a good time to sign off or check out. Won't be offended at all. Some people love dogs, some people don't love dogs. But this guy was just an amazing puppy. I mean, like I said, he was the star of every show he went to. And just, he was big and bold and just always sought attention, or always people just gravitated toward him. He never met anyone he didn't like, dog or person. He was just like that. And we even did some more research into where he came from, because we had the pedigree papers for him, and we did some research on him, and we found out that he was the grandson of Adamant James Augustine, which you probably don't know that name, but back in the early 70s, there was an Adamant James Augustine. His grandfather won 2 consecutive Best of Shows at the Westminster Dog Show, and that's not been done since, and it's was rarely ever done in the history. But he was just an amazing dog, that Adamant James, his grandfather. And we came to realize that Casper looked exactly like his grandfather. He acted a lot like his grandfather. In fact, we'd often have, twice in my life, I was out on the street walking Casper. This was after he was a couple years old, and we actually had people stop their cars in the middle of the street, pull over, jump out, and they'd come running up to us shouting Adamant James, and they'd look at him thinking that's who he was. And we told him no, that's not who he was. Well, they'd look him over, and they decided you really should have this dog in the show, because he is as good as his grandfather, as far as just deportment and character and makeup and everything about him. He was just that kind of dog. And even as we went into ministry, he just became just an amazing draw there. We first started, the first place we served was in inner city Columbus, in really a mission church there that was helped a lot of people out with food and clothing and other things. But we had services there. But I would just go out walking with this dog, in the streets of Columbus, and the kids would just come up, their parents would come out, and it enabled me to break the ice and be able to talk with them and get to know people. It was just an amazing experience, because he was just an amazing dog. And as things went along, as our life went along and developed, we were having difficult conceiving to have a child. So Casper really was our child. That was just the way it was. We were out walking one day there in Columbus, and another dog started following him, and it just wouldn't stop following us. And we took that dog home, and trying to find its owner. Well, I think we had him in our house for maybe a couple weeks before we found where he actually belonged. And during that time, Casper just loved playing with this other puppy. So we were like, okay, Casper's over a year old now. Let's get him a friend. And so we decided, once they took that dog, we went out and found a female Springer Spaniel puppy that became his companion then for the next many years. And the amazing thing about Casper, one of the amazing things about him, is he came housebroken. We did not have to do anything. He was just absolutely insisted on going outside to go to the bathroom. And the amazing thing was, when we got his companion, the little girl we got, we named her Brandy, and Casper and Brandy were just inseparable. But we thought one of the cutest things they did when they were little, when we'd see Casper, he'd go to the door and want out, and then we'd open the door to let them out to go to the bathroom. Well, Casper wouldn't go out. He'd just stand there and proudly look as this little female puppy, his companion Brandy, went trotting out into the backyard and went to the bathroom, and then she'd come running back after she went to the bathroom, and he would lick her on the head, and then they'd come back in. And that was, I guess, the way Brandy was housebroken. In fact, later on, when we lost Casper, we found out Brandy wasn't housebroken. we would find little gifts at the front door because Brandy had went there and did her business, because I think she was used to when she went to the front door, we just automatically came and opened it. She didn't realize we came and opened it because Casper was insisting he needed to go outside. She wasn't housebroken. She was only housebroken because he was. So we had to develop a new habit where we'd have to pay attention to Brandy, and anytime she went to the front door, we had to go and open the door and let her out. And it's the Bayou Guru was talking about his dog and what an amazing hunting dog she was. Well, Casper was a lot that way too. I never, I didn't hunt much in Ohio. I'd hunt sometimes when I went to Louisiana, but I wasn't hunting in Ohio, but I'd like to go out and walk in the woods. Well, Casper, we'd be out walking around, and Casper, the name Springer Spaniel, they come because when they see birds or they find a bird, they set up on that bird, and then, when you come up to it, then you give them a signal, and they flush the bird, and then, of course, the hunter, you shoot the bird, and then, they go and retrieve the bird. Well, he would actually set up on birds when we were out walking in the fields in Ohio, and then I'd come up and I'd give him a signal, and he'd flush that bird, and then afterwards, and he'd wait for a second and freeze and watch that bird, and then he'd actually come back and he'd be upset with me because I didn't do my job. I didn't shoot the bird, so he couldn't go and retrieve it. And he was just had many amazing characteristics, and I just love that dog. Actually, when we take him hunting in Louisiana, he was that good. We'd hunt woodcocks and other birds down there, and he would indeed find them and flush them, and when we'd shoot them, he'd go and retrieve them. Just an amazing companion, and actually the love of my life. In fact, then I think when he was about 12 years old, and he slept with us in the bed with us, so that both he and Brandy both did. Well, Casper wasn't in bed with us, and I heard this soft whimpering, and turned on the lights and looked, and he was leaning against the wall, just whimpering. So of course I scooped him up my arms, and luckily I was at a church, and there was a veterinarian that went to that church that was a good friend of mine, so I knew him well. So I called him, even though this was like 2 a.m. I think, and he met us down at the veterinary shop, and after examining him and doing some tests, he gave us the bad news that Casper had, a bad case of, I think, leukemia, and that he wasn't going to live very long and he was going to suffer. And so we made the decision, really within a short time, that he'd had a good life and he didn't deserve to go out that way. So we went ahead and had him put to sleep. And I have to tell you, I was just devastated. In fact, I decided I'm not going to go through this anymore. I realized the dog's lifespan would never be as long as mine. So oddly enough, I went out and found an African gray parrot and raised it. And so now we have an African gray parrot because I knew I was going to pick out a pet that would outlive me. But by the time Brandy got to the point that we needed to put her down, like I said, I was kind of over that, and we went out and found another English Springer Spaniel. That's my current English Springer Spaniel. He's a puppy. He's over here barking in the background. Casper, come over here. Actually, after we got him for a while, I realized he was basically about the reincarnation of that first Casper we had, just in temperament and the way he acted. So we named him Casper as well. I don't know if he's going to shut up or not. Casper, come here, buddy. Come here. Casper, come up here. Maybe people want to see you. Come here, Casper. Casper, come up here. Come up here, Casper, come up here. I don't know if he's going to come up here or not. Casper, come here. Come over here. Come here. Come up here. They want to see you. This is Casper, an English Springer Spaniel. He's about 11 months old, but like I said, he's the spitting image of the original Casper we had, and acts a lot like him. And I'm not quickly falling in love with him. I actually fell in love with him the very first time I saw him. But he's a good dog, and like I said, we decided to name him Casper as well. But that's really my review to the Bayou Guru. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the story about my Casper, my special dog. And I'll sign off now, and we'll catch everyone later.